Hi, everybody. Episode 50. That seems momentous somehow. I'm really excited about this episode, too, because I've been eager to interview Carly Waters, whom I have admired on social media for so long. She's a former lawyer. You may have heard her talk about that past history and what it's brought to her current game. But what happened in our conversation was really exciting, I think, because we didn't necessarily have a topic. So we stumbled onto something that is so real and so authentic and so important, which is this concept that we don't need more always. Sometimes we just need better, fewer, better. Carly says that's her motto. I'm pretty sure that's my motto too, and I think it might be something that's worth contemplating and embracing for yourself. You'll be the judge. As I said, Carly practiced family law for years, of course, which gave her an advantage in terms of being able to talk confidently to clients, I would think. But then she really had to create a whole new persona for herself in her design business, Carly Waters Style. Definitely check out her website. It is pretty impressive. I love what she writes about on her website. First of all, she came up with this term warm minimalism, which I think describes her style very well. And she says that the real beauty in the work comes from the integration of form and function, that Carly Waters Style marries the analytical with the beautiful, white spaces, clean lines, layered textures. Each space feels peaceful and purposeful. Every home has an innate style, and that style should be honored by the architecture and the finishes selected. To me, when I read that, it really conjures up the idea of a specific client. And that's part of what we're going to talk about too, how creating a streamlined vision for yourself, rather than being afraid of it deterring people, instead to focus on the fact that it will attract the people who are just right for you. Something else I love about her website is the fact that she refers right on the home page to the fact that she charges an hourly fee for design services and has a minimum project fee of $5,000. And you're going to hear when Carly and I talk in this episode that she cops to charging $275 for consultations, but really thinks she should be charging $375. And I give her a little nudge on that. And I'm going to give her a little nudge on this. Her minimum project fee probably needs to be higher at this stage in her career. She's 3 or 4 years down the line from where she started and is really gaining a name for herself. Following every podcast, I have homework to do because these guests inspire me as you all inspire me. And a couple of things that came up in our conversation, one of them had to do with Carly's suggestion that you go back through your Instagram account and do some editing. And I was a little bit anxious about that. It seemed like a very big task. And it seemed like, oh my gosh, how many times have I mentioned tequila? So I actually went to do it. I had trouble doing it on my desktop. So I did the phone version. And that was a little bit easier. And I was able to delete those posts that were an inside joke, something kind of silly I did just with one friend. I just deleted those things and I felt a little bit better about what was on there. But I did notice that on my Instagram feed, I have at least 60% is just lifestyle and fun and travel. And the design side's a little weak. So, it was a good exercise for me because now I see I need to be focused a little bit more on putting up some of my design projects on a regular basis. So thank you, Carly, for that. Something else that came up as we were talking was this idea of social media platforms and how they're changing. And Carly mentioned the new social media website, Vero. And I wanted to take a look a little bit more closely at what they're doing. Currently, they are so overwhelmed with user requests, they've had to shut down for a little bit. But something I found fascinating and interesting and timely for all of us on their website was this. Their business model is not based on serving ads. Instead, it's subscription-based, and that means their users are their customers, not the product they are serving to advertisers. And we talked about that on a recent podcast, didn't we? If it's free, you are the product. It remains to be seen whether or not Vero is going to be the answer to all of our problems. We've all jumped into websites and agreed to terms of service and then found out that a month later, a year later, or 2 years later, those terms of service are wildly different, and yet we agree to using them. So I think it is important for us to pay attention to the business model and the mission statement. Who is that website aiming to serve, and do they put that customer first and foremost? I found this to be an extremely productive conversation with Carly. She's got great actionable advice. I think this is going to be one of your favorite podcasts. It definitely is one of mine. I want to also, before we jump in and you meet Carly, I want to mention that we got an inquiry from a couple of people about the Palm Springs retreat, which is halfway sold out. We hope you'll consider joining us. And the inquiry had to do with the fact that, hey, we're going to be in Palm Springs. We hope you're not going to hide us away in a convention center and we won't get to see all of the beauty around us. So I want to clear that up right away. This is not a Business of Design convention. We have done those before and they can be really great experiences. This is a retreat. We will spend exactly 0 time in a convention center or in any hotel boardrooms, 0 time. Our learnings will take place in a beautiful setting, a lovely Palm Springs house with a pool, which is why we are keeping attendance fairly low, definitely under 20. We haven't come up with our ideal number yet, but it will be under 20. And we will make sure you see lots of Palm Springs, and we will do that by putting you in a private coach, and we will hire appropriate guides, and we will get into places that you would not be able to get into on your own, and we will do intensive learning in a beautiful environment full of sunshine. You'll be able to get up and serve yourself coffee at any time you want, or a snack or food. So we're going to pamper you and take care of you, but we're going to push you to work hard as well. So thanks for those inquiries. We'd love to have you join us October 18th to 21st. It is Modernism Week, so you can expect some sexy architecture to be part of the fun. And the price tag is $2,400. And if you raise your rates, like I encourage Carly to do, you'll be able to pay for it in no time without it coming out of your bottom line. So everybody, thanks so much for considering joining up for our trips, which are a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. And thank you so much for your support of this podcast as well. And now you're going to meet Carly.
Welcome to the Business of Design podcast with Kimberley Seldon. Business of Design is the coaching community for independent designers like you. We know it takes more than hard work and talent to successfully run a professional design firm. There are proven business strategies that can solve your immediate business challenges and transform your life. Don't try to do this alone. Join today and you'll have access to more than 100 video courses, plus Kimberley Seldon as your mentor and guide. Unlike traditional coaching, which can take years to produce tangible results, BOD is a fast track to immediate results for independent interior designers, decorators, architects, stagers, and landscapers just like you. Monthly membership is only $67.50. Annual members save 2 months and have access to Kimberley's contracts. What are you waiting for? We all know design matters. At Business of Design, we think designers matter too.
Hey everybody, this is Business of Design. We're so glad you are here. If you are an independent interior design professional, architect, stager, stylist, landscaper, you're in the right place. And we are going to be talking to an amazing guest today, a lovely woman who I fell in love with on social media. I noticed her Instagram posts, and her style is so clean and so pure and so lovely. And turns out she lives around the corner with me, and I can introduce. Did I just say she lives around the corner with me? Is that what I just said, Carly?
I live up the hill.
You live up the hill. You live in Pacific Palisades. I live in Santa Monica, so she lives near me, but not with me. But she's come to hang out with me today. And everybody, this is Carly Waters. Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So did you even know that I fell in love with you on Instagram?
I didn't.
was just coveting all of those pictures you post. And
but
I'm
I love hearing that.
Well, I love that you have such a niche or a niche, depending on where you live, and that you're so so consistent about it, and you really seem to know who you are as a brand. And so I was surprised when I started doing a little digging that you'd only been an interior design professional for 4 or 5 years. So I thought you would be a really great person to talk about how do you, number one, stake your claim in a certain look in order to have a consistent brand. And part of that equation has to be how do you attract the client who is perfect for you. So that's what we're going to talk about on the podcast. How does that sound?
That's perfect.
Awesome. Okay. Let's hear from you. We might as well ask you, what did you start out as and how did you find yourself as an interior design professional? And then we'll jump into the actionable stuff you guys are all dying to hear.
Okay, so I started if anyone has read my bio, I started as a family law attorney, and I graduated law school in 2010. My husband and I lived in San Francisco, and even in law school, I wasn't keen on becoming a lawyer, which people would say, well, then why'd you go to law school? Well, I had a dad who was I have a father who's an attorney and a grandfather who's an attorney. So it felt like the quote unquote easy thing to do. But even during law school, I thought, okay, I want to use this degree and do something in business when I'm done. And then in law school, I started doing a side hustle of organizing for clients and mostly attorneys. So when I finished law school in 2010, the economy was atrocious. So I didn't get a job. Probably 4 or 5 months, and during that 4 or 5 months, I continued that side hustle and even, had a business name and was doing this organizing job for clients, which was not the industry it is today. Well, long story longer, I got a job as a family law attorney after realizing, you know what, I don't want to jump ship so quickly, and went to this great family law, female-owned firm in San Francisco, and I worked there for 4 years. But during that time, I realized my heart wasn't in it and slowly started to think, okay, where do I want to take my career? And that's when my husband got an opportunity to move to LA, and I thought, this is a good time to switch. So we moved to LA in 2014, and at that point, I started my business as an organizer, and I didn't actually start as a designer. I started as an organizer who did styling, because I knew off the bat I could get clients, and I didn't need a portfolio, and I didn't feel like not having gone to design school would hurt me. So that's where I started, and then quickly the clients started bringing me on and saying, I need design help. And so I started really pivoting and moving more to the design side. But in my mind, I thought, I can't be a designer until I have a portfolio. So I did what, I thought was rational, which is go buy a house in LA, flip it, use it as your portfolio. I also happened to be watching other designers and how they were getting into the industry, Amber Interiors and Emily Henderson, all of whom were using their own homes as their portfolio. So I thought, if they're doing it, that's something I could do. So, there were probably easier, less expensive ways to do it, but go big or go home. So we bought a flip in Redondo Beach, which I, took down to the studs and redid, and then used that as my portfolio. And at that point, which was now 3-4 years ago, that was really the starting point for my design career.
I love that you're talking about something that so many of us have done, which is use our own spaces as part of our portfolio. And of course, we do that because we have complete control and we can finish it all the way, right?
Correct.
So no shame there. And what I really admire, and now it makes a little bit more sense, you have this career in business as a lawyer previously. What I really admire is how you came out of the gate with a look that is so consistent and pure and clean. And that was not my story. I started out doing projects and every single project looked different. And so it took me a long time to establish my brand and who I am. So there's a lot of advantages to having a tightly defined brand and sticking with it. And you've got to go to Carly's website, watersstyle.com.
Yep.
Everybody check it out and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. So, on the Business of Design podcast, we like to make sure we're talking about things that are actionable and that other people who are listening can incorporate into their business practices immediately. So let's just start with the most obvious, which is, how do you establish a consistent brand, and why is that an advantage?
So for me, this brings us back full circle. Because I started out as an organizer, it really dictated what my look was, which was clean, simple, minimal, and I didn't feel like in design anyone was merging design organization. So in my mind, I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to bring this look and merge these two concepts. And because naturally that's what I could do, I just went with that. And I never swayed from that. And when I met with clients that didn't fit that, I said, I love what you want to do, but let me refer you to someone else, because I'm not going to give you the look you want. I'm not a maximist. I'm a minimalist, if that's a word.
So can I jump in right there and say, because somebody listening right now is going, well, that's easy for you to do, but I don't have enough jobs, and so I have to take every single one that comes my way. And I think Carly would agree that we want to acknowledge that is a reality for some of us. You're barely making ends meet. You have to take every job. So we recognize that it's a bit of a privilege. It's a bit of a luxury, isn't it, to be able to be selective about clients. So just, we feel you, we know, I remember exactly what that feels like. So,
and I have that same thing, and I have to fight against that, that there's not going to be enough, and that mentality of, famish, right? That, oh my God, if I don't take this I'm not going to get, I think all of us have that concern. I think what you want to try to do is fight against that and say, if I say no to this client, that means a better client. I'm making space for a better client.
Yeah. And in the reality, you just absolutely need the money. You just need the money, and you can't afford to say no. That's okay. You take that job, you do the very best job you can, but it may mean that you don't want to use those photographs on your website, or that you'll just do some strategic vignettes that are consistent with your brand to use on the website. So one of the things that has been a challenge for me is many of my projects look different from one to the other. And so I'm having to even still now get rid of a whole bunch of photos on my website because it's not the direction I want to go in moving forward. So it's okay to take jobs that aren't your dream job. There's no shame in that, and earning a living is important. But you do want to be consistent in terms of what you put out into the world that matches your brand.
Yeah, I look back at, I started with apartment therapy, and they shot our apartment, I think it was in 2010, 2011, and I'm almost embarrassed to have the link on my site because my style has changed so much since then, but, you just have to kind of own it and say, well, it's been 8 years or 7 years and things change. And I've taken clients that I just don't put the photos up online because it doesn't match the look of my brand.
Right. Okay. So what I think I hear you saying though is you want to be intentional around the look that you want to stand for and what that means in the world. And then you want to make sure that you're clear about that online, on your website, online, Instagram,
PayPal, Venmo, like all the places that you have a picture should all be consistent across all the,
And that should help in a big way attract the person who's just right for you right off the bat. Okay, so what else do you do? Let's say now you've got your look, you know what it is. And by the way, if you don't know what your look is, invite a couple of designer friends you trust to take a look at your website and help you with this exercise, because sometimes it's really hard to be objective. I remember that I loved that client, and so to me, I love that look, but somebody else will will look at it and go, it doesn't seem consistent with other things you did. So I don't think that should be on your website. So it's okay to get somebody, to get a friendly designer to come in and look at your website and help you be more selective.
Yeah, I came up with this idea of, it's called warm minimalism. And I don't know when it was, maybe 8-9 months ago. And it just popped in my head when I was scrolling through Instagram one night, and I put it out there, and every time I remind myself, I'm like, does this align with that? Does this feel like, and because it's not, sometimes you see all these pretty things and you sway and you want to pivot, and you're like, no, come back to what is my brand, and let me ask myself again, does this align?
There's so much about this industry that requires discipline, so much. The interactions with clients, logging your timesheets, getting paid, sending out your invoices. There's so many aspects of this job that require discipline, and this is just another area where you have to take responsibility for the image you're putting out into the world and be a little bit hardcore. And if anything, when you say, Carly, if you really are keen to establish a look, when you say fewer pictures,
yes,
or better than a whole bunch that are inconsistent?
Yes. Well, that's my motto in life, apparently, is fewer, better. I think I tend to only post once a day, and I usually post 5 to 6 days a week. And I really do. I try to just put my best stuff out there. I do I use Insta stories a lot because I like being real and true, and I want people to get a flavor of who I am. And I think that's the perfect place to, put those messier photos and whatever out to the world. But in terms of when someone goes to my page, I want them to scroll through. And I remember when I made this decision, I went back and deleted probably half of my initial Instagram post because I thought, that doesn't fit with what I want people to see. So I think you have to be really disciplined and go through with a fine-tooth comb and say, does this all match? And do things like delete images that don't.
Okay, really? Seriously, I have to go and delete my Insta posts? That's crazy. I'm in a panic right now because I think 50% of my posts involve tequila. I'm like, is that bad? Is that wrong?
No, but that's
definitely a client.
Real life.
That is definitely a client who's going to say, like, she's my designer. We can design and drink tequila. Yeah. All right. I can't even imagine going back to edit my Instagram post. Okay.
It was one of those things where I was just like, it's back to that apartment therapy. I was like, oh God, I'm kind of embarrassed that this is out in the world. What are the things I can control? Okay, I can control my Instagram.
Right.
So let me go back and clean up and take out those, the first year or two of Instagram, it was not as curated as it is today.
All right. Wow. Okay. That's something for me to think about. I'm afraid to even open that Pandora's box, but there you go. I love what you said. Fewer, better. Fewer, better. That's it. That's what it is. I know so many designers who are panicked because this avenue or that platform or this particular entity is trying to take business away from them. And I'm thinking to myself, I need 10 to 14 clients a year. That's it. That is not very many clients.
Right.
10 to 14. And for some of you, that you need 5. Or you need 3. And the number that I need will get lower in the next 10 years, not higher, because there's a lot of fun traveling I want to do and whatever. So if you can, I'm going to recommend a course, Profits to Projects or Projects to Profits, will help you determine how many customers you need in order to make the amount of money you want to make. So I'm gonna throw that out there as something you should take at businessofdesign.com, Projects to Profits. Fewer is better. Fewer is better in so many ways.
Well, I also think of it in terms of platforms. So I made a conscious decision also when I started to say, which platform do I want to focus on? Because I personally am not good at, doing 5 different platforms, right? Some people are great at being an all-star on all of them. I wanted to focus on Instagram. So it's funny, you just had the LinkedIn podcast, but I actually deleted my LinkedIn account 4 years ago when I left the law because I thought, I don't want which, now I probably shouldn't have, but I didn't want my old law life to be mixing in with my design life. So I decided, okay, I'm not going to have clients find me through LinkedIn. And then even Facebook, I have a Facebook business account, but I really don't. It just copies my Instagram post and puts them there. So I think if you decide, Instagram is it, then you have to make sure you focus every day on putting a good post up and being consistent, but maybe not doing 5 different platforms.
Right. I'm hearing this a lot. Actually, my daughter deleted her Facebook account, and she just feels like it's not where it's at for her. She works in Hollywood. She's in the entertainment industry. She just doesn't feel like it suits her brand and her vibe at the moment. And are we all banking on Instagram staying exactly like it is forever? Can you can I hold your hand when you answer this question?
And there's some new, what is it called? Vero, or there's some new one I've seen this week, and I'm like, oh God, not again.
Yeah.
Because now we're all
social media fatigue. I think a lot of people are feeling social media fatigue.
Well, I'm just like, why do we all need to jump ship and go to the next best thing? The next best thing may not be better. Why don't we just keep it where it is and make that, but it's, all of a sudden.
Yeah, and ultimately, whenever these things monetize, that's when there's problems. So there's no free ride, and I'm just kind of hoping I'm hearing that Instagram is not going to stay as lovely as it is.
Well, no, and people are already upset about the algorithm, and I mean, I've noticed, I'm like, why is this getting so many fewer likes than, 3 weeks ago? This is a gorgeous image. So it's definitely, I mean, it's frustrating. The thing about Instagram, though, is it has been a platform for designers to advertise for free and to be able to show the world what your brand is and get all that publicity.
Yeah. We'll see. There's tequila. When this all goes terribly wrong, there's tequila, and we'll be there for you guys. Okay, so I want to get back to this idea of fewer, better. So if you really believe in fewer is better, you're not talking about fewer as in just a few of the worst possible clients. You want a few of the best possible clients.
Right.
So tell me who your best possible client is, and tell me how you get to her.
So, I mean, fewer better with clients as well, because 10 to 15, I mean, you have a lot of people working for you, but I do think it's more in the 5 to 10 a year for my brand. And it's someone who trust immediately, someone who is not going to question, is not going to, what do people say, shop you.
Okay.
I tend to do actually very well with attorneys as clients.
Me too. Yeah. I hear some people say they don't like to work with lawyers, and I actually love working for lawyers.
Yeah. My one of my favorite clients is an attorney, and they first of all, they understand how you bill, and they can see the line items, and they'll review it, and they understand that you're going to bill for emails, you're going to bill for phone calls, all of those things. So that right away is a good thing. Number 2, most attorneys are self-aware and realize I don't have a creative side, and because a lot of attorneys don't, they're they have that one side of the brain, they don't have the other, and so they're willing to say, I don't know how to do this, I need to hire you because you do know how to do this, and so I'm not going to question every decision, because I think it's really important for the client to just say, okay, you're in charge, and I'm going to defer to you. So I'd say that's a huge attribute that I look for.
I never really thought about that. Yeah. I find them extremely reasonable. When things go wrong, they get that it's not life or death. You know what I mean? I've had clients, I remember this one guy, I think we were late with a pillow, and I thought he was going to have a stroke. So I'm like, wow, that's just, and I find the attorneys that I've worked with are like, yeah, okay, things go wrong. When will it be done? Great. That's terrific. Moving on.
They are more even keeled. And then I would say, again, ideal client has the aesthetic that is in line with, for me, is in line with what I like to do, which is this California relaxed look, minimal California.
More minimal. More
minimal.
minimalist.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't need 50 blankets in the living room.
Right.
I'm like, those all have to be dry cleaned at some point, so let's stick to maybe 2. And then they have money. Right? They need to have money, because if they don't have money, they're not going to be able to afford you.
Are you allowed to say that? I mean, are we allowed to say that? Sometimes it feels like that's something nice girls don't say. Is that does that date me by so much? But I'm so glad you said that, because the reality is it's not for everybody. When I hear messaging that is, an interior designer is, available for everyone. No, that isn't
Right.
true. It is a luxury service, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and that's something I've said, because there is this idea, and I don't know if it's because of all these new startups that have made people feel like, oh, I can get a designer. No, it's luxury, and it costs money, and not everyone gets to have it.
And I would say it's affordable luxury. I mean,
Right.
I have a lot of clients I would consider to have a modest amount of money who will hire us for modest
Right,
projects.
right.
And they think it's worth the money, and we do too. The messaging that everybody can have one is dangerous. The messaging that everyone can be one is a lie. Mm-hmm. So you got to know who you are. And if you're looking for that luxury client, then again, you want to make sure that the brand consistently says the kind of luxury you provide.
Right. So in terms of where I find them, so and this is also probably a faux pas, but I use what I call my network. I'm not shy around the people that I know to say this is what I do, and I put it out there. And then I have
Wait a minute. So you're like out for dinner with girlfriends, and you're like, ladies, I need a client. Who you got for me? How do you do it specifically? I'm shy about this, by the way, so this is really good for me to hear.
So I think back, okay, so when we first redid our house in Redondo, I remember having friends over, and they were like, oh, can we bring our other friends over? And I was like, sure, because in my head I thought the more people who can see my house, the better. And truly that ended up being, both of those people ended up hiring me, both the immediate friends and then the friend of a friend. And at that, little barbecue, they said, oh, can we hire you? We want our house to look like this. And I said, yes. And I remember, I love these people. It wasn't like, oh, the only reason I had them over was to get hired. But I also was thinking, I know both of these people just were buying houses, and they're going to be interested in having a designer. So it's happened that way. It's happened, when I'm at dinner and someone mentions something, I'll say like, oh, I'm ready to get a new project going. Let me know if they need a designer. I'd be happy to chat with them. I am not shy about interjecting.
Wow. I would never do that. And I'm not saying that's right. I think the way you're suggesting it is much better, I think. But it requires a certain amount of confidence, right? And
right.
I think having the brand consistently behind you gives you a bit of confidence, because when they find you online, they're going to find what you want them to see.
Right. I also, they're different personality types, and right, I am a connector. So naturally, the way my brain works is it's like, oh, that person has a need. Oh, I have an ability to fill that need. So I'm not even thinking about it a lot. It's more of a innate ability where she's saying something, and in my head, I'm like, oh, I can, and it doesn't even have to be about me. I could say, oh, I know someone who can do that. Right. It's all around all things, and it just happens to be when design comes up, I'll throw myself in there.
I admire that. And the thing that I'm going to take from this too is have an open house. Invite people into your home if it's your home. I'm having an open house at a client's house in May. We're finishing her condo. It's the last condo she's ever going to do. It's like the 5th project we've done for her. It's super sleek and sexy and Art Deco. And I asked her if I could invite her neighbors in to see the condo. And she said yes. And I'm doing it specifically because we love working in that building. It's close to where I live. And I know that when some of her neighbors come through, one or two of them will want to hire us. So
that's really smart.
Host an open house. You pay for the caterer, you send the client flowers, you give her a spa day gift certificate to say thank you because you're going to get a job out of it.
And do you send the invites out, or how do you figure out? Do you just put brochures in people's mailboxes?
Postcards under the doors.
Okay.
That's what we do. Hey, we just finished a project in your building at, suite, 2205. We're having an open house. Come for a cocktail and something to eat, and meet the client, meet your neighbor and meet the designer kind of thing, or just meet the designer, because in this case, the client doesn't want to be there. She's letting me do it, but she doesn't want to be there. She's like, I don't want to know my neighbors.
And then if it's a house in a neighborhood, would you just do in people's mail? Like, how would you put postcards in people's mailboxes?
Now, the one time we did it at someone's house, and this is going back to 2008, and that was a really great year. Like you mentioned, 2010 was a bad year. 2008 was an amazing year for the first half. So what we did is we invited past customers and we told them to bring a friend, because I don't know how we would invite like just random people in the neighborhood to come by.
Right.
So that's how we handled that.
Okay.
And then another client we have, she wants to throw a party for her for her girlfriends to show them the work that we did, and she wants to know if we'll come. And we're like, absolutely, we'll come.
Business cards in hand.
Yeah. So that's really a good idea, everybody. Think about some way being able to host an open house or an experience in a home that you've designed.
Yeah, so I happen to like hosting, but last week we had my son's 5th birthday party at our house. Most birthday parties in preschool, people, they go to whatever, those indoor kid places. And we've always hosted the birthday parties at our house because I'm like, I want people to come. I want people to see. And it was great. And I actually was talking to the office manager at his preschool yesterday, and he was like, oh my God, people were talking about your house. And, that's what you want.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe they're not going to hire you right now for whatever reason, but then they go and they tell another friend, I just went to this amazing house in Pacific Palisades. You should see it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I do things like, my son is just turned 5, and he's going to do his first year of T-ball, or first season of T-ball in April. And I'm not a big sports person. My husband's definitely bigger, but I'm like, no, this is good because this is how I start to meet people in the neighborhood. And this is, how you get your name out locally.
Yeah.
So just doing anything you can to put your name out there.
Okay, and then the goal is to have the fewest number of clients possible, but make the money you need to make.
Right.
And what do you do when you encounter that client who wants to hire you, but you don't feel it's a good fit? Do you have any strategies for that?
Yeah, I just handled this last week. I went on a client consultation, so I do a up to 90-minute client consult. And
what do you charge for that?
So I should be charging $375, but I keep charging $275 because every time I get on the phone with someone, I get nervous and I downplay my rate, and somehow $275 comes out. It's supposed to be $375.
What are you going to charge next, starting tomorrow?
$375.
Right. Okay, you guys heard. We want to keep her accountable. So do you have that on your website? Do you have that?
I don't have that, but I could put it.
Put it on there, because that's going to help back you up.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm so proud of you. You just made $100
for
every consult that you go to extra.
And so
that was easy, right?
Yeah.
Like giving yourself a raise is actually kind of easy. Like, boom, done.
It's part of it is just saying it and then getting reassurance that, is that okay? Can I charge that much? Right? Because we always want to downplay what we do. Yeah. So I went on this consult, lovely couple, but I, within 5 minutes, realized this is not my ideal client.
Right.
I like bigger projects. I love demo. I love renovation. I like reimagining an entire house, or at least a floor of a home. And they really just needed to do a little facelift here and there. So at the end of the 90 minutes, after, providing a lot of good information for them, and even providing subs that I would recommend or GC, I said politely that I didn't think that they should hire me because I would cost more than they should be paying for a designer. And I gave them a name of a designer that I love that likes this type of work. Mm-hmm. They weren't thrilled. But they paid they'd paid my consult, and
well, they were disappointed because they wanted to work with you. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes we just have to say no, and ultimately, it does work out better for the client.
Right, and I've seen it where I do have the client that's not right, and it's not good for either party.
Wow, yeah, that's lousy. Okay. So what I'm hearing is fewer is better. Do fewer projects. The only thing that this equation doesn't work for is your rate. Right. Don't earn fewer dollars. Right. Stop earning fewer dollars.
This is also not for your first, I'd say, 3 years of business, because my first 3 years of business, I heard Shay McGee talking on some podcast she was on recently about we took every single client we could get. And I didn't do every single client, but I definitely said yes to clients, even though I knew maybe this wouldn't be the best client. But I just said yes because I wanted the experience. I wanted, the experience. That was like the number. I needed experience. But I would say after 3 years, you've got a good amount of experience, that's when you can start getting pickier.
Yeah, and it definitely depends on how much money you need to earn. Are you a single mom who has to support yourself? In which case, I want to acknowledge that it's very difficult to turn down jobs when that's the case. When 2008, the end of 2008, when the economy took a dive, we ended up in 2009 and 2010. The only projects we had left were kitchens and baths. That was it. We did not have a whole home reno for 2 years, I think. And if somebody had one, I remember at one point we got hired to do a dining room, and I came back to the office. I had a very big staff at that point, and they said, "How did it go?" Because we're like, are we going to get fed next week? And I'm like, we got the project, and they said, "What is it?" And I said, "It's the whole dining room." And we just laughed ourselves silly, like, oh my God, the whole dining room. And that's what we needed to do to pay the bills. Right. And now I could say no to that project. That would be fine. But I've worked for myself since I was 14 years old. So I never, ever, never want to underestimate how hard it is to say no to business when you need the money.
Yeah. And exactly. And that's why the first 3 years I took clients that maybe weren't the right fit. I also, because I talked about, how I started with a house flip. So I have basically two components to my business. I have the client business, and then we always have our own house that we're working on. So I was able to, this last year, because we sold a house, I was able to start getting pickier with the clients I was taking.
Yeah, which is exactly where you want to get to. The fact of the matter is, this business should provide you with a living. It should provide you with a really great living, and it should give you some flexibility to start to make choices as an independent contractor about what you want to do long term. And if it's not doing all that for you, then keep coming back, because we'll have more things that we'll talk about that will help you get there. And Carly's acknowledged that she started out in law. I started out in entertainment, and I did not grow up in a home where there was money or antiques or any discussion of interior design. In fact, both my parents are from Arkansas. They were both deceased now, but they were from Arkansas. And I remember distinctly when I told my mom that I was going to go to design school, she said, "What is that?" And when I explained what it was, she said to me, "They'll pay you for that." These are learned skills. This is not something you're born into.
Imagine telling your parents that you're a lawyer and then you want to go be a designer.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Yeah.
That did not go well.
That would not go well. No. Yeah. Anyway, we're glad you made the switch. We like to end every episode with something we call design intervention, and that's an opportunity to give something to the community that's going to help them in some meaningful way. So it could be any tip or suggestion you have. The more actionable, the better, because these guys who are listening, they're on fire. They're making changes to their business, and they're keenly listening to you to tell them something that they need to change right away. So what would you say that is, Carly?
Okay, so I have two tips. The first is be very cautious about working for friends. Because
should I get the tequila? Sounds like maybe there's a story there.
All I'll say is I actually had this conversation yesterday with a very good friend who I declined doing work for, because I said with every friend job, you have to ask yourself, are you going to be okay if you're not friends at the end of this? Because it can go south. It shouldn't, but you don't know how people react when they're spending a lot of money and they're living in a construction zone. It is very stressful. And when you're in the mix, your fingers start getting pointed, and if things go wrong, all I'll say is just be cautious of doing work for friends.
Can I add to that? That's a terrific suggestion. I would add that if you don't have buttoned down systems and total confidence and an A team of trades, that I would double down on what Carly said. But I would say if you've been in business 5, 10, 15 years and you're using all the 15 steps, I now can say that I have 4 good friends that I've worked for, and the key to being successful is running those projects exactly like you would run any other project. Do not make exceptions because they're friends, because that's when things go wrong. Charge what you charge, run the project like you run the project. Don't if you have a suggestion and you think they should follow it, tell them that you think they're making a mistake if they don't do exactly what you say, and stick to it. So
100% with all of that. Okay. The reason that my advice comes from, again, the first 3 years.
Yeah.
The second piece of advice I would give is to under-promise and over-deliver rather than over-promise and under-deliver. Most of us in the service-based industry are people pleasers. I am a major victim of this, and my instinct right away was to say yes, 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 and of course we can do it, and be super confident. Well, that just got me into a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. And so I have learned, the Kimberley technique of hands, a butt on the hands, like shut your mouth, don't say you can do something, because as much as we want to say yes, it's just that client's going to hold you to it, and it's going to end up getting you in trouble.
Okay, now I think you should explain the Kimberley Seldon butt on the hands thing.
Okay, so it's...
I don't want anybody to misunderstand.
Most of our inclination is to keep talking when someone says, oh, can you do this? Oh, yeah. And then we just keep talking, and we get ourselves into trouble because we keep overpromising and saying things that we shouldn't say. So the idea is say your piece and then put your hands underneath your legs, or underneath your butt, so that
sit on your
hands. There you go. Sit on your hands, so you force yourself to close your mouth.
Yeah, that's my reminder. I sit on my hands, and that's my reminder to shut up.
Right.
Don't say another word. You said too much already.
Right.
Shut up.
Exactly.
And so if there's clients listening, they're going to be looking for me to sit on my hands, which I do quite a bit, as a matter of fact. I do it when I present the cost of something. I know you wanted to spend $100,000, but now your budget is $275,000. Sit on my hands.
Exactly.
Right? Sit on my hands. So, yeah. Okay. That was such great actionable advice. Thank you so, so much. Are we going to be hanging around together at High Point?
Yes, I'm going to be there with Brittany from Vintage Rug Shop.
Oh my God, we're going to have so much fun. I
know.
Can't wait.
And now I may have to sign up for Palm Springs because I just saw that pop up.
Do it. Oh my God, it's going to be awesome. In fact, I've already been on one scouting trip. I'm going again. What I do, I'm obsessive compulsive. So for those of you who don't know that, I'm not technically that, but I am that. So we will go on 3 or 4 scouting trips before the retreat. And when I go back in March, I have 3 different architectural guides hired, and over a 3-day period. So we'll be doing tours with all 3, so I can find the one who's the best. So that's what we do. We will make sure that it's an amazing trip. October 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st. It's during Modernism Weekend. We will get you behind the scenes at some amazing events, and we're going to work really hard. It really is going to be a hardworking trip. And then following the trip, following the retreat, the Palm Springs retreat, there will be 3 hours of coaching for the people who go on the retreat. And I wanted to do that because it's so hard to take time off from your business to do learning, and then sometimes you go to a great conference or an event and then you rush back into your life and you never implement, and then it's a bit of a waste. So we want to make sure at the end of the retreat that you make a commitment to do some implementation, and that I'm going to help you do that so that we can follow up. And I'm going to follow up with Carly in a week and find out if she's charging $375 for the consultations. I'm not letting her off the hook.
Go put it on my website.
And you only need the Palm Springs. The Palm Springs event is $2,400. We'll pamper you. We have a luxury coach that'll be taking you thing. We're going to spend a ton of money on guides and visits. I
always say, whatever Kimberly's cooking, I'm eating.
But see, now you only have to do somebody help me with the math. You only have to do 24 consultations and you've paid for the retreat by raising your rate by $100. So if you want to go to the retreat, raise your rate by $100, and then you'll have to do 24 consultations and you're done.
Done.
Yeah, this was awesome. You're a wonderful guest. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and nice talking to you, Carly.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of the Business of Design community. If you love what we do, please show your support by subscribing to the podcast and rating our efforts. Remember, you can be a part of the podcast by sharing your comments, ideas, and questions via the BOD hotline at 416-780-9187, extension 107, or by sending an MP3 file to info@businessofdesign.com. And when you're ready to transform your business and your life, sign up for a monthly or annual membership. Together, we will achieve extraordinary results. Start today.